Hey everybody, Matthew Turner, Ashley Soden, Roar of the Lions UK, just setting up here for the show. Howdy to everyone in the chat. Austin Damon, Mike Marine, Motor City Brit, Grand Eyes of 12 and Brian Shook. Hope you're all doing well. You've had a good weekend. It's been a bank holiday weekend here, so some lucky people haven't been working, obviously some have. No Anthony Fitzpatrick today, unfortunately. He wasn't rotated on a late, and then he was rotated on a late, which is frustrating, but there we go. Just waiting for Ryan to come on. Lisa Di Lorenzo is in the chat as well. Appreciate you coming on with us. And here comes Ryan now too. We got a really exciting show for you guys today. Just going through our UDFA class. And this is a really interesting group, so I'm really excited to get into it. If you guys have any questions now through the show, you know what to do. Just make sure to @ the channel. So on YouTube @Royal Lions UK, on Twitch @ROTL_UK, and I'll see that, and then we can pop it into the end of the show. Thank you to Dan Pass for subscribing at Tier 1, his 14th month. He says, cheers for all you guys do. Go Lions. Cheers, Dan. You're the real MVP. You're on every show, and
Yeah.
your dedication shows, so it really does, so appreciate you.
Yeah, cheers, Dan. And obviously, when you keep seeing me looking down, it's me checking on the score for our beloved Forest.
They're going to stay up. They're going to be
I hope so.
They'll be
I hope so. Just for the selfish reason, I might actually be able to go to a couple of games next year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know if you want to talk about this publicly with the FSU stuff, but like, are you going to try again next year?
No, the statute of limitations on my references has run out now, so I'm going to have to like pivot and replan like everything.
Oh, mate, that sucks. I can't believe they didn't go for it. You're so passionate about this stuff.
It's fine. It's like things happen for a reason. We'll look back in like 10 years' time, but obviously with Lions winning like 4 Super Bowl rings and a couple of more NFC Championship games, and we'll see that it was worth the sacrifice.
There we go. How you doing, Ryan? You right?
I'm all right, guys. How are you?
Yeah,
right.
Not too bad. Right, shall we crack on with this since it's a bit later? All right, here we go.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 196, Undrafted but Not Forgotten. I'm Matt with Ryan and Ash. How you doing, boys?
Doing good.
Yep, all good.
It's been an interesting week, and I mean, we'll get into the news in a minute, but there's some wacky people rating the Lions in the power rankings, good and bad. So today we're going to hit the news, which is the only item, and then we're going to get straight into the UDFA class. We're going to get into them in detail, looking at what they might provide for the team, what their chances are of making the roster, how they might change things, and what we might be able to see from them. We're going to start by thanking Jeff Hurley for the super chat on YouTube of $50, which is just absolutely amazing. Jeff, absolute legend. Thank you so much. That's incredible. It's a super sticker, in fact, and it says super effective with a little emoji. And you too can join us and be part of the festivities. I've made some great graphics for UDFA stuff today, so you guys can see the player profiles, see the face if you haven't actually seen the player before. A lot of Detroit natives or Michigan natives in this class, which I found funny. So the guys at home might actually be familiar with some of these guys. But let's get into the preamble first. Discord channel has been a great place for the draft and an even greater place to be for the off-season, so come and join us there. I'll pop a link in the live chat in just a moment. Cotter Football Podcast on hiatus, but I know Ant's working hard on that, so that'll be back previewing every single Power 5 conference? Or Ryan, do you know do you doing all the conferences? Power and Group of 5, I guess?
We do most of the Group of 5 too, usually. Yeah, so the FBS generally.
It's a massive undertaking. I can't believe how much work goes into that, but there we go. Please don't forget to like the show, sub to the podcast, all that good stuff. You know how it helps us out, and we're finally monetized on YouTube again, as you just heard from Jeff. That's absolutely fantastic. He says, thank you, least I could do. I mean, it genuinely is more than the least you could do. So thank you for that. And for Dan in the Twitch chat as well. Much appreciated, you guys. It really helps the show cover our costs, and who knows, might help us do some things when we get to Detroit for the draft in 24. feedback form down below as well. And the giveaway, that closed on Friday, but because of my prepping for this show, I have not been able to actually get to the drawing a winner. So we'll reveal that on our next show. The winner will get a choice of some great Detroit merch. Let's get straight in to the news, and it's the power ranking season post-draft. And it's not really news, is it? But the Lions are ranked between 6th and 15th in the NFL. PFF at 15th, NFL.com and CBS at 11th, USA Today at 10th. Peter King at Football Morning in America has us at 6th, top of the third tier of teams who I'm guessing he's kind of saying are the best of the rest that aren't Super Bowl contenders. But guys, the range is massive. And I mean, maybe it speaks to the metrics that PFF run as to why we're so low with them. But do you feel that's kind of fair, being around 10th, 11th in the league right now?
I feel so, yeah. About 10th. I know we have a lot of momentum, but quite a few of the teams that have ranked above us. So, for example, it's stuff like the Jags and the Giants and that, they've made the playoffs last year. So I can see why they've been put ahead of us, because they have that sort of prestige of saying we were in the postseason last year, you won't. But some of them, like having the Vikings over us with how much like attrition they've gone through and the uncertainty with them, I can't see them being above us. But yeah, PFF seems to think so. So depends on the metrics, I guess.
They're just silly. 6 is ridiculous. We are not a top 60 in football. I will just can't say that. 15 is, I mean, it sounds harsh, but on paper, I can understand the reasoning of why teams put us there. I'm more bothered, as you say, who's above us than where we actually are. I don't care about position. Like I said, I've always put PFF like they're bathwater. Like, I don't take anything they say whatsoever. Like, I don't like them or anything they do. Like, I just think it's all for clicks. But yeah, like if anyone has the Bears above us, like I suggest you go find help. Like whether that's God, like Alcoholics Anonymous, or your local meth dealer. Like you need help.
Oh, never cease to crack me up, man. For myself, if football rankings like this were what's the likelihood of the team getting to the Super Bowl, I'd buy it more than a power rankings, because I think there are 6 teams in the AFC alone that are probably better than the Lions. But if you told me that the Lions are the 3rd best team in the NFC and therefore have the 6th best odds of making the Super Bowl, I wouldn't blink at that. Like, the Lions' chance of winning the NFC is actually not that bad. But, I mean, there might be a whole range of playoff teams in the AFC that are better than Lions. So, you know, like, that is part and parcel of how you do power rankings. Is it ability to win it all? Because we're in the right conference for that. But, I mean, are the Chargers a better team than the Lions? Because the Chargers could easily be the 7th seed in the AFC. But that's probably a comparable team to us.
Yeah.
If you're going to do the power rankings, I think you should always split it between NFC and AFC. That is the better way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Right, that's the news. There's a bit of a dead time now between now and rookie minicamp, which is a week away. Starts 12th?
12th, yeah.
So it
getting there.
starts Friday?
Yeah.
Lions do maths. Right, let's get into the UDFA class. We're going to go offense to defense, skill positions onwards. So, starting off with the quarterback, Adrian Martinez from Kansas State. Now, he's had an interesting career. 4 years at Nebraska, moved to transfer to 1 year at K-State, 788 completions on 1,239 attempts, almost 10,000 yards, 51 touchdowns to 31 interceptions. So not exactly the ideal touchdown-interception ratio you're looking for from a quarterback, but super athletic, 1.6, 110 yard split, 4.55, 40. Hasn't really improved since his freshman year. He's kind of just always been at this sort of level. He can make all the throws, and he's a massive threat with his legs. He's got 111 rushes for 627 yards and 10 touchdowns, 5.6 yards per carry in 2022 alone. But can panic a bit in the pocket when he holds the ball, and you can see him kind of going through his progressions like, I don't know what I'm doing, boys. And, I mean, I don't know if you see the same from him, but he's going to provide something interesting for the scout team. And if he had to come in relief, I wouldn't feel awful about it, because for me, he feels like an upgrade on, say, someone like David Blau. What do you guys think? What did you see from him?
I've seen a bit of him. He blows. I've watched a lot of him. If he comes in relief, we're screwed unless he's running. The arm is completely not to be trusted with. He was in a terrible Nebraska team and somehow made them times look worse. If you can't go to a bad team and elevate them, like, there's something wrong with him. Like I said, this season, like I say, he had success running the ball. That's the only thing he's good for. That's the only thing I trust him to do. That bigger flick profile, the arm, the accuracy, it's just not there any panics. He screams XFL MVP in 2024. That's where he will be. Like, he is not an NFL quarterback. I'm just not sure of it. But to go against in practice against running, he's probably going to earn himself a little bit of money in the next few years. But I don't see him ever really holding down even a QB throughout the NFL. Think of Skylar Thompson, but a worse passer. That's kind of like where he is.
Yeah, I completely back that. I only watched the bowl game and then I think it was the Oklahoma game. Yeah, completely agree. But it does, as we say, give us something that we haven't had before in the past couple of years, which is a rushing threat to practice against in the weeks when we go up against like Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, and all that. Because usually we'd be going against like David Blau and that, who, to be honest, don't really have that much mobility, and it's shown on the field with, for example, the Bears' favourite highlight last year with Justin Fields running on us before he infamously throws an interception. But it is, to say, great for the practice squad as something just to go up against, but yeah, probably will offer not a lot when it comes to actual proper football downs.
Couple of comments from the guys in the chat. David Reinfurt 70, hello David, saying he was missed a turnover at Nebraska, but I think he had the unfortunate situation of being coached by Scott Frost, so it's maybe not all on him. And Quirky Zerky said, people thought that too of Jake Delholm and Kurt Warner. Some key quarterbacks just need time to develop and a good situation, but agree with Ryan on him being a running quarterback for the scout team. I mean, that's the entire difference for me in his play, because I've seen him make all the throws across all of the field. It's not a really strong arm, but he can air it out there. It's consistency with that arm, but it's decisiveness more than anything. When it was quarterback sweep or just draw or power or anything like that, he was like, take the ball, one look to try and throw them off, and then he's gone. Like, he's decided what he's going to do. He knows that the blocking's going to be out in front for him, and he executes really well. But then when holding the ball, he's just all at sea. Like what I said about Will Levis and having no feel for quarterback play, like you can see the cogs turning in the head, like you've been taught to do it, but it's not coming naturally to you. Like learning a language, but you're not a fluent speaker. So instead of like just knowing what things are intrinsically, you're like, okay, I know that word, translate it into English, and then it's that. And it's that, but in quarterback play for me as a passer, it's just not coming quickly enough.
I mean, someone tweeted like the Lions have got their version of Taysom Hill, and that is a really good thing.
Ooh.
That is you could see him playing like as emergency tight end or wildcat or on special teams or like goal line in the pistol or something like that. They will find a role for him. He just won't be throwing the ball. But Taysom Hill's done very bloody well out of that. So if Adrian Martinez can carve out that kind of role for him, he's gonna latch on somewhere for a couple of years.
Right, so for Adrian Martinez, boys, chance of making the roster, we've kind of already said what his role might be. Do you think he might hang as quarterback 3, or do you think he'll be a practice squad guy, or are those both the same things?
I think it's the same thing.
Like Steven Montez, I think.
Okay. Do you think he replaces our current quarterback 3, or do you think he's going to stick around as well?
So I know we were discussing this in the pre-show. For me, as soon as Hooker becomes healthy and we know he can go out there and make plays, I'm cutting Sudfeld, because the only thing that Sudfeld's offering me now is sort of in week 1 to whenever the bye is. Let's say we have to buy week 7, 1 to 6, when Hooker's getting up to speed after coming off the ACL and he's learning the playbook and that. He's someone we can sub in just in case. But as soon as after that bye or whenever Hooker's ready to go, you cut him, and then Hooker's the guy that's on the bench riding the pine, watching, taking the kneel downs at the end of games like Sudfeld did last year. And then if the unfortunate thing happens and Goff comes in, I have definitely a lot more belief that a rookie Hendon Hooker can win us a game than bloody Nate Sudfeld can.
Tate Nudfeld. Sorry. Anyway, shall we move on? And move on to potentially the most relevant of all the UDFAs in running back Mohamed Ibrahim from Minnesota. 5-year starter at Minnesota, although he did only have one game in 2021 due to an Achilles tear, missing the entire season against Ohio State. He led the Big Ten in touchdowns in 2020 and 2022. That mark also led the NCAA in rushing touchdowns in 2022. He's 5'7.5", 209 pounds. He had 53 rushing touchdowns in his career, but he only had 145 receiving yards in 5 years at Minnesota. So one of the best pure runners in the class, going downhill, amazing contact balance, but limited to no receiving upside, and injuries really tanked his stock, and it wasn't great for him. Ryan, I'll come back to you. Mohamed Ibrahim, you guys were quite high on him, I think, through this process on the college show, but it kind of always felt like he might fall out of the draft altogether because of those injuries.
Yeah, I know Ibrahim well, and it's sad to see because his college career, his NFL career, is basically over before it started because he's got so many miles on the clock. The Golden Gophers ran the kid in at the ground. He's had a devastating knee injury already. As you mentioned, he is not a passing back whatsoever. Don't even try and make him because you're wasting your time. He is a north and south, break a tackle, home run, or follow his block and hit the hole. I think he, like, the last couple of years, he averaged like 6th in the nation yardage after tackle or broken tackle. He is one of the best in the nation after contact. And that's because he has got Barry Sanders' level of that shimmying side to side and the natural low center of gravity that most guys don't have. David Montgomery's got it, and Mohamed Ibrahim have got it. If you're under like 5'8", 5'7", and you're compact and you can change direction quickly, but also stay balanced when you're hit, someone is going to get an absolute steal in you. If he'd not had that knee injury, I think he'd have been probably like a 6th round draft pick. Right now, he's never really been a special teamer, but he's going to have to be to get onto a roster. Now, he's got the most upside and potential probably of the entire UDFA class. But as you mentioned, he's had lots of attempts. He's had lots of wear and tear, a bad injury, and he's quite old. And he's really small. So everything is stacked up against him. But it wouldn't surprise me if he does surprise us and does latch onto the team. And he's going up against like Reynolds for a running back 3-4 slot. That is how I see him. I think he can make the roster, but it's going to be an uphill battle. But I really hope he does because I really like the kid. He was served some rough times on a really bad Minnesota team, but PJ Fleck trusted him and he gave him the bell cow every year that he could get 1,000 yards out of him.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm half glad that Ant isn't here because he would have a go at me for saying this because obviously it's someone that he loves. But Ibrahim, for me, if he sticks around, spelled the death of Jamar Jefferson, the beloved pod running back, because Jefferson, aside from a couple of games in his rookie season where he did flash, particularly I think it was the Pittsburgh one, hasn't really shown that much on the team. Perhaps it's a lack of opportunity, and during preseason he can shock us all under this new running back coach. But for me, Ibrahim replaces quite a lot of the sort of production we had with Jamal almost last year at the goal line. Like, I'd rather have him trying to push through the pile and get that like 1 yard touchdown than say Jahmyr Gibbs or maybe even David Montgomery, because Mohamed can just, it shows in the interview he gave that was reported in Riz's article on him. He always just tries to fight forward. He always gets those yards after contact. So I know Ryan mentioned it. He was 3rd in yard. He had over 1,000 yards after a contact this past season. Only 2 other running backs broke more tackles than him this season, which was Chase Brown and BJ Robinson. They all had 100 plus more carries than him. Mohamed just knows how to break those tackles. On the goal line as an RB3, just subbing him on 1st and 2nd down and just wham him into that line and get him over the line. That's his role for me. And if he executes that, even if it's only for the 3 years he has the UDFA contract, that's still really good. Like, you still got production out of someone that was supposed to be drafted, and we'll come on to some other guys later who were draftable grades and didn't get drafted. But you've got production out of a guy who most teams just written off because of that injury history, because of the small size, because of the tread on the tires. To get production out of something like that at such a cheap cost, I'm not turning that away at all.
You can do what Adrian Peterson did a few years ago. He got 9 touchdowns, didn't he, at the goal line?
Yeah.
And like I say, that he did what Jamal did last year. Like I say, if you punch them in, you can make a lot of money being a special back inside like the 3-yard line.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to talk about. So, like, we haven't got a short yardage back anymore. So, Ibrahim coming in as RB3 actually adds something big that Reynolds doesn't. And you were talking about Jefferson. Does Reynolds make it through waivers or not? I don't know, because I feel like they want to stash Reynolds rather than Jefferson. But I kind of feel like Reynolds might not pass through waivers. I don't know. He shows some good tape with us, so we'll see. But yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, Bob, I don't think either will. Whichever one we waive, they're going to Carolina, because we drafted Jamal for Juice, and then obviously Juice got Craig off his sofa watching Netflix and got him that nickname. Whichever one we try to waive, we're probably having to say goodbye to, and they're moving to Charlotte to go play with Juice. Like, so it's, but which one do you like? Either way you choose, you're losing one. So it's whichever one offers you the more. And I think it is Craig.
It is interesting though, because the other thing we haven't really talked about is his pass pro, which is exceptionally good for someone of his height and weight. Like 5'7" and undersized generally. You know, he's 190 pounds, something like that. But obviously that's stocky for someone of his height, but you wouldn't expect someone to be able to hang up against defensive tackles or edges or bigger linebackers, but he does it really well. Solid technique. If he's facing someone who's going to bulldoze over him, he chop blocks him down low, stops him doing anything. If it's someone that he can hang with, his ability to kind of square out and block is exceptionally good. So you can rely on him to go out there on first and second down and pass pro. You can rely on him to run the ball. Like you said, the lateral agility is absolutely incredible. But he's not going to be a third down guy. And more often than not, that third running back is someone you'd like to bring in on third down. So I kind of wonder what his position is here. And maybe it is that short yardage situation where Gibbs is the third down back and then Montgomery is 1 and 2. And then they kind of flip between them as RB1 and 2 for those reps. But I have trouble with Ibrahim going, okay, fine, he's the third best running back. But is he going to be the third best in the stable in terms of what they provide in skill set? Can you have that guy on the roster when he can't play on third down? I don't know, I'm struggling. Anyway, Ibrahim, prediction for him, can we cut down to 53? Does he make it?
Yes.
Yeah, he'll have to, because they'll have to protect him on the practice squad. He'll get snatched.
All right, there we go. So Ibrahim possibly making it. We'll move on to wide receiver Chase Cotter from Oregon. 4 years with UCLA, 1 with Oregon, 103 receptions, 1,380 yards, 9 touchdowns in his 5-year career. 64.2 PFF grade in 2022. He jumps off the screen physically. 6'3", he's bigger than most people on the outside, 201 pounds, RAS score of 9.34. He's an explosive player with limited college production. And a big reason for that, Ash, is that while the RAS score jumps out there, his athleticism hasn't translated to production.
Yeah, it's so I have watched a bit of Cotter because obviously fans of the college show will know that their offensive coordinator used to be the OC for FSU, and now he's obviously Rye's beloved ASU's head coach now. So I've watched a bit, so I know how their scheme works. And unfortunately, as much as I love Kellen Dillingham, he doesn't really know how to use his wide receivers. Like, look at FSU's track record before this year at pumping out wide receivers. The only one you could probably name that they've pumped out recently is Tamori and Terry, and that's because of the whole controversy with him getting caught up in a gangland shooting rather than his production. So Walker, yeah, Cotter, while he has the athleticism and that, he hasn't had that much production. Hopefully, it might be like the situation we have with Green, our 7th round pick, where he just wasn't given the opportunity in that. So I'm looking at his BFF, and the one time he really did get an opportunity, which was Oregon State, he really did explode with an 80.6 grade and all that. But as an athletic flyer in camp, just to try and round out the receiver room and give us just another big body, a big fast body to throw at, maybe as the bottom of the roster, as backup on the practice squad for like Reynolds and Marvin and Green. Yeah, I'm happy with it, but it's going to be a long shot to make the roster for me.
Yeah, the problem is, like I say, the transfer for one, he went to the wrong program because he went to another. Like I say, when they had like a Dyer as a running back Oregon, they still ran the ball quite heavily. Before that, DTR running quarterback had Charbonnet, a run heavy offense. No school that he's been at has really utilized his skills on the outside, having a natural deep ball quarterback. So I think he went to the wrong school when he transferred, and it kind of shows in his production. This feels a bit like when we went last year and we had Jonathan Adams Jr. and Sage Surratt, big-bodied UDFAs, and neither of them lasted more than like a month. They were like caught the first point because we were deep at the position, and also we really struggled to latch on anywhere because they had somewhat limited college production. So I think Chase has got an almighty job to make the team. If he lands on a practice squad, I'd say that's pretty good for him. But it only works in his favour that we do need an X receiver, even in the short term. Like I say, he is battling directly with Antoine Green to basically be the backup to Josh Reynolds, and then maybe be the backup as well to Jameson Williams. So there's probably one role going, and I think only one of them is going to get it on 53. So I don't see him making the team.
It's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because we don't really have a player like him on the team. I mean, 6'3" and 200 pounds. He's an absolute beast on the outside. And when you watch him play, there's a sort of lanky but smooth ability to him. He looks, I don't know, gangly, but still kind of does. He's able to produce with like a sort of jack of all trades thing. Like the route running isn't awful, but it's not exceptional. The speed is fine, but he doesn't really separate. He's a slow burn, like those sort of 20 to 40 yards where he can actually get those legs pumping. He's great, but 0 to 20 yards for me is kind of like a non-factor, and it's like, what's that doing for you? Like, someone of that height, you'd want him to kind of box out and be maybe a red zone guy, but he's a deep threat who takes a while to get going, and I just don't. Where does that skill set hang in the NFL?
I mean, the problem is as well that you kind of just explained Shane Zylstra, who's going to move to receiver as well. Short yardage, box out in the red zone. Like, naturally, if he's lost 15, 20 pounds, which is a lot of weight, and he's getting leaner and a bit faster, he actually could make that Project X that could kind of spell the end of the UDFAs, because they're going to keep a guy in-house that they already know pretty well. So Shane is a threat to the receivers that we've picked up.
Okay, so prediction for Cotter, practice squad, missing out. What do you think?
Missing out.
It's a shame.
We've never been a team to stash receivers, have we? We've just never stored them.
No, and I mean, we've got a litany of good wide receivers on the regular team anyway. I mean, is he going to get out of the tenured practice squad players we've had and have at the moment? I don't know. But we move on to another wide receiver that I've put on at the end here. One that I missed earlier and had to quickly do. Thompson from Virginia. Now, this is a really interesting player.
This is the guy someone said is Taysom Hill. I got it wrong.
I mean, I still bought the Taysom Hill thing with Adrian Martinez. I can see it. But Thompson, I think it applies to a little bit more. Super senior, 3 years with Mississippi State and 3 years with Virginia. So he's been around the block a little bit. He was quarterback for the first 4 years of his career. Started the first 2 with Mississippi State, but he's been a backup since, transitioned to a running back wide receiver in 2021. got 990 yards receiving in 2021 as well. So that transition went very well for him year one. 139 receptions total in his career, 1,675 yards, 5 touchdowns, PFF grade of 72.2 in the most recent year. Natural playmaker, high upside, but damn raw given how late he's transitioned out of quarterback. Ryan, I don't know if you've seen anything from Caton at all.
I've seen a bit of him, yeah. Now, this is the guy that the practice squad is built for. A dynamic weapon in all phases of the game. Like, those don't come around too often. And it's he's massive. He's athletic. He's got a profile that you can put a bit of muscle and weight on to carry it and still lose that speed. Ben Johnson would probably love a guy like this if he can actually get his hands on him and keep him around. So I would like to do whatever we can possible to keep him in-house, even if we just don't even have a position for him, just list him somewhere, but then try just different freaky things with him. He's built for a special trick player, something like that. He's had production like at all relative positions he's played, so there's a lot there to work with.
100%. I can just see like our own version of Philly happening with him. And hopefully, one of the things I've ordered for myself, payday, is basically a breakdown of last year's entire playbook. I put it in the Discord about it. And I know, I think Jeremy quote tweeted the tweet that I got it from as well about how like our most explosive plays. As you said, Ben Johnson's going to find a way to use this guy, whether it's lining him up as a sort of wildcat quarterback, lining up as a wide receiver, and doing all sorts of just weird stuff with him. We know we love a trick play here, both on offense and special teams, and here's our next guy to sort of put in and do all kinds of stuff with. It's going to be amazing to watch if you just stick around.
I mean, it's so weird to watch him play because I have been watching him this afternoon trying to prep for this, and the guy is just a shade under 6'5", 215 pounds, 220 pounds. To watch him take handoffs in the backfield looks ridiculous. But then he's coming up against nickel cornerbacks of 5'8", 5'9", and he's 6'5". I mean, it's men against boys, but you have 5'8", 5'9" corner nickelbacks in the NFL who are going to be lining up to kind of man up against him if he takes a handoff. Like, he is a real mismatch weapon. In the passing game as well, his route running is nuanced. He's faking people out. For someone of his size, he's very manicured. Like, he's raw. He needs to get consistent. But the tools are there. Like, of anyone in this group for ceiling, this is the guy for me that's really, really high. The problem is his age, right? It's super senior, 6-year guy. So he's 25 now, I think. Like, how much growth is there? But I mean, put him in the hands of some skilled coaches. And I mean, I got confidence that given his skills, I mean, he's shown already at Virginia what he can do as a receiver and as a running back. So, as Ryan was talking about, mismatch weapon, limited basis. Now, he could grow into a big role. Like, I really think he could.
He looks like Cordero Patterson.
Yeah, that's a great comp.
Or sort of one that's a bit closer to home, because I've just remembered, what was Anton Randall in college? Quarterback. Who's better to learn from than someone who's gone through the exact same thing he has? So I know we're going to go on to it in a minute, but this guy's a real shot with me. It's just in my heart of hearts, we all know I love a weird play. So if you just stick around, I'm going to be ecstatic next year.
So, chances of him making the roster or the practice squad, boys, do you think he's going to be sticking around?
If he shows flashes in pre-season, he'll be on the practice squad.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the first of our offensive linemen, and we're going to start with the offensive tackle, Connor Galvin from Baylor. 6'6.5", 299 pounds, RAS of 5.35. He played in 13 games in 2022, allowed 4 sacks and 16 pressures at a PFF grade of 77.7. Strong, explosive, quick, that's what the RAS tells you, but watching the tape, good football IQ. But that's kind of where it ends. He was a 5-year starter, I think, for Baylor, if I remember right. 4.5-year starter. And good lateral agility. You know, they asked him to block a lot on like screens and that sort of thing. So he can get out and kind of operate the sort of offense that we like to do, because that's our sort of game. And kind of gap scheme type stuff, he's going to be a good guy. But he kind of loses out on counters. His hand play isn't exactly great. And at £299, he's going to be a bit undersized at the tackle position. He's got short arms as well, just a shade over 32 inches. And his wingspan is therefore affected as well. So might have to kick inside to guard, but as a 4.5-year starter, he's tenured at Baylor. And Ash, have you watched much of Connor?
Not a lot, but the bits I've seen is, again, the bowl game. I usually try and watch as many of the bowl games as I can. And this, again, I'm going to go for a sort of close to home comp in terms of like, especially with the height and the weight, and then the length starting that. Welcome to your new Dan Skipper, because Dan Skipper's also very big, kind of undersized for a tackle, and had to slide in. Because remember, this 6'7", this guy is, if he does stick around, he will be one of the tallest guys in the NFL. Dan Skipper's already there. I think Dan Skipper's like 6'8", 6'8.5". So if you don't want to keep Dan Skipper around, but they like that sort of skill set and his ability to both play outside and inside at tackle and guard if they need him to, and then play on the field goal unit, which Connor has done for Baylor. He's your replacement. I know we all love Dan Skipper and Paolo on this pod. So here's our new, cheaper and slightly younger version of them.
He's very experienced. Yeah, he has, like I say, a bit of versatility. If you want to try play him at tackle and guard, he's got a good frame. I like guys that have played a lot of games on the offensive line. Their age don't really matter, because usually they kind of plug and play, a lot of them. And especially on this team with the likes of Awasika and Eze, they do like to keep a lot of offensive tackle. Stenberg, we've had lots of them kicking about. So if you want to bring him in for an extra 6-man package just to test him out, that's fine. But he's probably going to get a good shot playing, especially in pre-season, because we like to just throw them in the deep end, don't we, really? See if they sink or swim. So I think we'll find out pretty quickly if he's got a future or not as a backup, which is probably where his ceiling is.
And so, chance of him hanging here, boys? 53, practice squad, not quite making it. What do you think going into this process?
I think you can pencil him in the practice squad before he's even taking a snap.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Having a look at some of the other guys that we're just about to talk about, I wonder, given our history with offensive tackles, whether the Lions are going to prefer the people they know rather than the new ones coming in, but we shall see. Moving on to our next guy, the last tackle of the group, Ryan Swoboda from UCF. Now, this guy is a unicorn for one reason alone. Is
big motherfucker.
He's 6'9.5", 310 pounds. That helps feed into that RAS score of 9.34. Now, he played 14 games in 2022, allowed 3 sacks and 22 pressures, PFF grade of 78.4. Spent 4 years at Virginia, 2 as a starter before moving to UCS for his 5th year. He's strong, explosive, and quick, as well as being tall. But that's where it ends for Ryan. He loses in a lot of ways. And I'll read a scouting report that I read on him, which said, and I quote, "He loses in many ways, including power, speed, bend, leverage, length, and hand fighting." Which doesn't leave a lot, does it? In which ways does he win? So I think the kind of cliff notes on this was that he's an extremely raw prospect with a really high upside because of his athletic traits and because of his power. When he gets his hands on you, that's the rep over. But that's the problem, getting his hands on you, because people have won by just hand fighting and swiping his hands away and then beating him with speed or bull rushing him and just a little bit of nuanced play at the college level for this guy. So nice physical tools to work with, Ryan, but I mean, man, it sounds like this guy's a long way to go.
he's too big. I'm going to say that now. His size is a massive problem. And from that scouting report, it's like a window cleaner that's 7 foot, that's scared of heights, doesn't like water, and needs laser eye surgery. Like, it doesn't sound like they're giving him much of a hope at all, does it? But I'm definitely going to say 6'9" is too big. His pad level, way too high. That's always a bad start because guys can get underneath him and then he can be manipulated. If this guy like somehow becomes a real deal, I will be amazed. But I'm willing to give him a go just because he's a freak.
I pretty much agree. The only way I can see him making the roster is if Dan and Brad and that all like their Game of Thrones and they envisioned him as the Mountain and Justin Fields as Oberyn the Viper. If you haven't seen that episode and you're squeamish, do not watch the episode. If you knew, you know what I'm going on about. This is a guy brought in specifically for that, just to be there, get Justin Fields and just crack him in half. That's the only way I can see him making the roster is if he is our Mountain to go and smash Justin Fields twice a year.
When I come on to talking about him and his ability to hang, I really think he's got a shot at the practice squad over someone like Connor Galvin, and I'll tell you why. I know that Connor Galvin's played 4.5 years in this league, and while, you know, he lacks some ability, he's actually a passable tackle. And, you know, he's going to do something if he has to come in relief. But how many times is that actually going to happen? How many times is someone like Connor Galvin actually going to play an NFL game from the practice squad? Like, what is the practice squad for? And for me, it's about thinking, well, who can do a job for me long term that we can develop? And with Connor Galvin, I don't see a developmental player. I see someone who's a bit of a vet already, who's developed into the player he is, and I don't see much ceiling here. With Swoboda, I mean, yeah, he's a long tenured player too, but with those athletic traits, I think the ceiling's just much higher. Get our offensive line coaches to have a handle on him and, you know, try and teach him some proper technique, and maybe you can make something from him here. Like, if you're going to take a swing, for me, at least take the swing at the guy that can go somewhere. What do you guys think?
I think the ceiling's got to be higher for him because remember, he's 6 foot. It's nearly 6'10". Of course, it's going to be high. You don't want him breaking his head through the wall every single time he comes through. But yeah, I agree. Like with the reputation of our O-line coach, this is the guy they'll probably take more of a swing on because, as you say, they just give him that sort of big, massive ball of clay and just say, "Here's someone with all the tools. Do what you can with him." And it's worked. We know he's developed Evan Brown, who before he came here was absolutely dog for the Browns and that. He's done something with Arasika where he kind of was passable for a couple of games. He's with Stenberg, he's actually managed to get something out of him from a previous regime. So he's this sort of big ball of clay, and Hank will hopefully come and make him into another one of his tanks. But it's the variance is very big for him. He can either really work out and become the next Jordan Mailata, or he could crash out and he'll be stacking the top shelves at Walmart in a couple of weeks' time.
Pretty much, yeah. There's no in between. He's got everything you can't teach. So let's see if he can actually learn anything. If he can, he could just be the next star, and he allows one of the next tackles to move on. I guess we'll see. I mean, let's be honest, there's not exactly much depth, so he's got a good chance of being a future starter as anyone on offensive line.
Yeah, that's fair. Right, let's move on to our last offensive player. It's the centre, Brad Cecil from USF. Now, this guy, if you want a player to root for in all of this UDFA class, it has to be Brad Cecil, and I'll go into why at the last part of this. 5-year starter at USF. He's an explosive and quick player. 6'3", 294, RAS of 5.16, which doesn't seem to jump off, but this guy really can move. Played 12 games in 2022, 1 sack allowed, 3 pressures, 64.6 PFF grade. High IQ and leadership. He's a high school wrestler. We all know that the Lions love that sort of background. So even though he's undersized at 294 and may need to put on a little bit of weight, he outperforms that weight with really good knowledge of leverage. The guy just outperforms that weight scale. Here's why you should be banking on this guy just really hoping that he makes it, because there are people out for themselves in this world. We know it. They're just out there for the money, and that's fine. Go and get your money. Fully support that. But there are some really special people who go out of their way to just make a difference in people's lives. And Brad is that guy. And I think that the character that Brad has is really going to translate for the Lions. He took NIL deals specifically to help a leukemia sufferer. He raised over $425,000 for a leukemia patient through the initiative Big Man, Big Heart. Now, the boy in question that he was helping, I think, was a 7-year-old boy, Bodie Wyatt, from... Oh, I don't see... No, I said from, and then I don't have the from. But Bodie Wyatt, 7-year-old boy battling leukemia. He became like a sort of unofficial team captain for USF in his time. They presented him with shirts and kind of made him a really big part of the team. The way that he kind of has taken him under his wing and make him a part of the team is absolutely fantastic. And I wish I had more to say about him in terms of his production on the field, because centre's kind of like a hard position to get really good tape on and actually see what's going on, especially at USF. But just as a man, this guy deserves to hang, boys.
100%. Like, I'm definitely rooting for him that reason, because to give a bit more background on it, Big Man, Big Heart is a foundation set up by an FSU O-lineman, Dylan Gibbons, who transferred from Notre Dame to FSU, and he set it up. So, and he's actually very close friends with Cecil. Unfortunately, Gibbons hasn't caught on with the team, which has upset me a tiny bit, because obviously got a root from guys. But Cecil has definitely sort of gained that sort of backing that I would have given for Gibbons. I've given to Cecil because, as you say, helping a 7-year-old, like forfeiting all that chance for money to help your own family, to get yourself a nice flashy car and that, and to sort of give it up and help someone in such need who's a super fan of the team. T-cell leukemia, lymphoblastic leukemia, horrible. And it was at a flag football game as well. He found out he had it. He was feeling sick at the game. Within 24 hours, he was in the hospital getting diagnosed with blood cancer, basically. That's horrific for someone to put themselves out there and be such a pillar of like his local community, and that. It's like inspiring to watch. And on the field, he's actually not that bad. He's, in my brain, to sort of go to the football side of it, he's an Evan Brown replacement in the fact he's a way better pass blocker than he is run blocker, which is a bit surprising considering what we want for the O-line. But at the same time, with how good we are on the edge, well, aside from like Decker, who's also a better pass blocker, but Jonah, Vaitai, Penno, they're better, way better run blockers. You need people in there to sort of help the pass blocking to make sure Goff doesn't get hurt. So he, for me, has a real chance to make this the squad as the backup center behind Frank. And if he does, when we go over to Detroit, I'm getting his jersey. I don't care. Like, he's going to be my sort of obscure player after the disgrace of CJ Moore. If he makes a team, Cecil is that obscure player that I'm going to be going on about every single week.
Can't say much more than that. We've got to need a backup centre too, because Graham Glasgow will be gone next year. And right now, there won't be a backup centre after that, realistically.
Yeah, 100%. We've kind of talked about his ability to hang there between us. Apart from me, I think he makes it as a practice squad guy for sure. I mean, just as a character guy, never mind anything else. But he's had a great career at USF, being solid if unspectacular. And you know what? I think an offensive line, if it was solid but unspectacular, you'd take that. So, all right, let's transfer over in just a second to the defensive side of the ball. Just want to thank everyone listening, whether on the audio show or on the YouTube or Twitch, for being here. Now monetized again on YouTube after our little hiccup over the draft period. So if you feel inclined, that would be fantastic. Appreciate you just liking and subbing to the show. It makes a really big difference to us. Let's get on with the defense, and starting from the inside of the defensive line, working outwards and then back to the back seven. We start with NC State's Corey Durden. Now, this guy had offers from Alabama and Georgia in high school, but actually committed to FSU, stayed there 3 years, and then played 2 years at NC State. He's 6'4", 290, so Razor 494. played in 13 games last year, didn't get any sacks, but got 15 pressures and a PFF grade of 66.4. Tall and explosive, but a bit slow, unfortunately. Struggles with leverage and pad level, but holds his ground well. Struggles to shed blocks when he gets locked up. Plays tall and stiff. And when he's on, he looks really good, but inconsistent technique lets him down. Ash, I'll come to you as the FSU guy. Did you watch much of him while he was there? And then, obviously, you transferred to NC State. Did you see much of that too?
So, obviously, 2020, his final year at FSU, was the time I was really starting to get into it. So for us, for FSU back then, he was more of like a rotational 2-deep kind of guy, which I think is why he obviously transferred to try and get that starting role to get his chance at the draft, which obviously it's kind of worked out because he did like double his snaps moving from Florida State to NC State. So in 2020, he had 207 snaps. Well, 2021 NC State he had 561, so it's definitely worked out for him in that way. He's got consistent like reps as a starter, but as you said, he's very inconsistent. So obviously his big game that everyone sort of knew about was the Boston College one, where he got an 83.1 PFF grade, great against the pass and run in that game. But yeah, the other games he's just inconsistent. But as the season went on, the one thing that it was his real weakness starting off, which was his tackling, improved. So I think it's the kind of thing where he needs to build up a head of steam, just get the snaps, work his way into the season. And when it comes to late season, he can be there and be a consistent piece, maybe as like a 2-down sort of on first and second down just to stop the run. But other than that, I don't know. So if we are really lacking at free tech and the team seems to think he can contribute there, I can see him having a path to the roster. But at the same time, I'm looking for that free tech role behind Aleem. I'm looking for someone that's offers a bit more on third down rather than first and second down, because that's what we got Bugs for. That's what we got Benito Jones for. That's why we drafted the guy that we did at the end of the third to help against the run. We need someone against the pass, and I don't think that's Durden for me, unfortunately.
Ryan?
I don't know too much else other than that, but I agree that 3 tech suddenly looks quite crowded. Like I say, it's now quite, the interior was suddenly brought in some bodies, so it's certainly a slog to make this team now at that position with all the veteran presence in front of him.
I mean, it is interesting, isn't it? Are we going to kick people inside to 3 tech, or are we going to kick people outside to 3 tech? Because apart from Aleem, there ain't a lot of 3 techs outside of Levi, and is he going to play or not? I don't know. Durden, team captain for NC State. Like, is he going to get their own character? Certainly, all of these guys, I think you can say, are high character guys. I think that will be a given. Steve O also says Demetrius Taylor making the team at 3 tech. He's certainly someone who's going to threaten that spot for sure. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Durden is that there are reps where he does it. So can he be developed by our new D-line coach from Penn State into a guy that can do it consistently? Because if he can, that's fantastic. I mean, I think that his 10-yard split was under 1 on Raz, bottom 10% of players. Like, you'll get off from the line as a penetrating guy, can't be that slow. It just can't. So that's where I kind of fall down on him, really. Quarterback's going to get the ball out inside 3 seconds. If they do that, you need to be an above-average pass rush guy in order to get there before then, even if you're unblocked. So, I don't think he makes it, boys. I don't think this guy's going to hang on the practice squad, unfortunately.
Yeah. He's lacking where he needs to. He can't be lacking.
All right, we'll move on to our second interior defensive lineman with the fairly unknown Chris Smith. No, not that one. This Chris Smith, defensive tackle from Notre Dame. Now, this Chris Smith is a Michigan local. He high schooled at Cranbrook Schools in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. Spent 3 years with Harvard, although one of those years was totally wiped out by COVID, and then transferred to Notre Dame as a grad transfer. He majored in human evolutionary biology at Harvard, so properly smart guy. Highly productive at the FCS level, but struggled for production going up to the FBS. Played in 13 games last year, no sacks, 2 pressures, a PFF grade of 70.9. So despite the low production, was actually graded quite well. had a RAS score of 8.46. He's 6'1", 302. He's a twitchy, explosive, and strong nose tackle. I think he did 35 reps on the bench despite being 6'1". Like, the guy packs a punch, and his Notre Dame guys really loved him from everything I was reading. There's not a lot of information at all about him, mainly because when he searched for Chris Smith, did he mean the safety from Georgia? No, not that guy. This one, please. The problem with him is obviously just that he's a nose tackle who's 6'1". Like, that ain't gonna help. There's lots of room for growth with him, though. With that athletic profile and being a twitchy guy, I saw some highlights of him. And when he's on, like, this is what we need. This is what I think we'd hope for in Levi. But, you know, like, he was coming into Notre Dame as a backup. He came from Harvard, which is not exactly known for his football program. And Ryan, when guys come up from the FCS level, it can be a challenge for them, and they don't always work out.
Especially when you go from, like, the triple A's to, like, the majors. Like, why Notre Dame for football? I mean, that was probably too big of an ask. Like, Harvard, the Ivy League, yeah, it's the football there is pretty bad. And Harvard aren't great. So, like, he was, like, jumping out of a pedalo and landing on the Titanic deck. Like, that was always going to be probably too big a jump or too big an ask for him. He sounds intriguing and very clever, but as you say, lack of experience at the good level and all-round lack of size that's not going to help is really going to restrict him at a position where at 6'1", if you can't hold your own, especially at the next level where you'll be double-teamed, you'll be very quickly pulled out.
Yeah, as Rice says, he's got a bit to learn to use that big strength to sort of to turn it into functional strength. Because he said, as I've said in my numerous times about the scheme, the one tech is designed to be double teams, and the free tech has a one-on-one to exploit. And if you can't turn that 35 wrench on the bench press into something, then he's not going to make team, especially with how crowded that one tech room is. And it's kind of surprising that given he's a nose tackle, the fact his worst grade of the season was against Navy, which is famous as being a run team as a service academy, is kind of worrying. But then at the same time, he turned that 30.6 against Navy. The next week, he turned around against Boston College again, which maybe says a bit about Boston College. The fact that both our D tackles had their best games this past season against them. It turns at 30.6 and more than doubles it into an 82.7 grade. Like, again, it's the consistency, but he has an even worse path to the roster considering there's 3 guys there already, 2 of whom have played last year in the team trust, and the other one that they've traded up back into the third round to get. He's got a real tough path to the roster for me.
Just had a comment from David Reinfeldt saying, Cranbrook, good academic school, which doesn't surprise anyone given his pedigree. Chance of Chris Smith making making the practice squad, boys.
He's clever. They might keep him around.
I mean, for me, I think he's got a shot because I don't think they have to keep him at nose. Like, why do you have to keep him at nose? He's 6'1", 302, really strong, and he's twitchy. Move him to 3. That's fine. I don't think you have to be in the nose at that profile. And, like, I've seen some reps where he really just wrecks people. So I would bank on our new defensive line coach being able to mould him better than Corey Durden. Frankly, I think I put him above Corey Durden going in. But as Ash said, with the people already on futures deals, you know, is that going to hurt him? Yeah, it is. I'd probably put him at about 40% shot to make the practice squad right now. That's where I'm at. What do you reckon, Ash?
Yeah, I can see that. You make a good point. Obviously, we've done it with Aleem this past season, moving him from nose to free tech. So I can maybe see the team doing that to give him a chance to fight for the roster. But at the same time, yeah, it's if it does make the team or the practice squad, it'd probably be at like rotational at best during the if he doesn't develop, and then obviously he's gone within 2-3 years. Maybe he's got a slight chance, but I'll put other players ahead of him personally.
All right, let's move on to the outside guys here with defensive end Zach Morton from Akron, 6'5", 264, RAS of 9.31. He's tall, explosive, and fast. He's a Detroit native, went to Cass Tech High School, which I believe is about a mile away from Ford Field, so super local guy. Spent 2 years at Syracuse as a backup before moving to Akron as a starter. Played in 12 games last year, 5 sacks, 25 pressures, and a 64.4 PFF grade. Unfortunately, had a 22.9% missed tackle rate this year, which is not great. But 25 pressures in back-to-back seasons. Played 50-50 as an interior guy and exterior guy last year before moving outside full-time in the current year. Blocked 2 kicks on special teams in 2021. So potentially a guy that has some versatility there. Boys, have you seen much of Zach Morton at all in the MAC at Akron?
We did mention him. Junior mentioned him on the MAC show that he is good. Akron, the Zips, one of the worst teams in the FBS. They're bad, but that's not to do with more. Like I say, he is an athletic freak. And his size and his engine and his ability to play on the edge, on blocking field goals and kicks, as a natural special team engine that we don't have because the Lions never get to block kicks. We never even get a hand close to any of them ever. I feel like this kid's actually really got a strong chance. The missed tackle rate is bad. Setting the edge, he can totally whiff sometimes, and that does really hurt him. But if you find him in the right place and give him a little bit of protection, like they did with Bugs, didn't they? Bugs came into Detroit with like a 20% missed tackle rate, and that came down pretty drastically after his first year. I think this is a kind of kid I would like to give a chance. Being a native as well shouldn't help, but you kind of feel like in Detroit it kind of does. It kind of carries a little bit of weight. So I feel like, and when you've got to think as well, this time next year, there will probably be no Harris, maybe no Romeo, maybe no Julian potentially. Our edge room outside could be pretty bare. This kid, I'd say, has got a good 78% chance of making the practice squad just because of his size and athletic, and he is able to get to the quarterback as well. He has got speed and bend off the edge, whether that's getting in the way of a kicker or actually trying to chase down a quarterback. So, big, strong, athletic kid.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned Junie. When we first signed him in our Discord, I asked him about him, and I'm going to paraphrase what we said. So he's played rush defensive end at Akron, so the role that like Charles Harris and Hutch played for us this past season. He was in rotation with another guy who was more of a run stuffer, which probably is a good idea considering the missed tackle rate, but he was very productive at in the pass rushing way. He's probably fighting Julian for that sort of backup Sam role behind Houston because that'll probably play more to his strengths. And then in the actual article that Junie wrote that Adasil mentioned later, he's a ball of clay with raw instinct who in the right hands can be molded into a sub-package specialist on the defensive line. Thankfully for Morton, Detroit has a great reputation for developing such products in recent years. Former first-round pick Charles Harris revitalized his career upon arrival in the Motor City, or fellow waiver wire claims John Kaminsky and Isaiah Buggs also found a role. Of course, James Houston IV also had a breakout year as a practice squad call-up, collecting 8 sacks in 7 games. So this is I trust Junie 100% on this guy. So if Junie says this guy could be like James Houston, a kind of sub-package rusher under Sam role who can come in, flash on small snaps, but can get pressures, can get sacks, I'm all for it but you all saw what Houston did for our defense last year, coming in and doing that, open things up for Hutch, open things up for Kamish and Pascal. Having another guy like that is just adding more and more pressure onto opposing offensive lines, and I'm all for it.
Oh dear, Ash, by the way.
Oh no.
Yeah. I believe that this guy has a good shot of making the roster. Not roster, the practice squad, basically, on the basis of what you guys said. I think we're all in agreement on this, that he has a chance. So let's move on to the back 7, and we'll start with the first linebacker, probably the one that's had the most fanfare coming in, which is Isaac Darkangelo from Illinois. Now, Darkangelo's a 1-year starter at Illinois. He had a few reps in the previous year, but barely played at all. So he's only played 1 year of football. In his career, 55 tackles, a sack, 10 pressures, coverage grade of 58. He's 6 foot, just a shade over, and 227 pounds with a RAS of 7.16. He's also a Detroit native, coming from Central Catholic High School. Fast and agile, but lacks explosion and is undersized. Think Malcolm Rodriguez led the Illini in tackles. best attacking downhill. But Ryan, potential redundancy here with him being so similar to Rodrigo?
He's a special teamer. That's it. That, I think, is the only thing he's going to have in his locker next year. And I'm sick of... I no longer have a place for those on my practice squad, unfortunately. So, yeah, he is a redundant Malcolm who's got less of a nose for the ball and much less experience. Like I say, Malcolm was a long-time starter at OST, and this guy has very little footballing actual time to his credit. So, yeah, he's gonna have to win some over and probably get a miracle to make this team.
See, I think he does have a shot because the team has kept around Anthony Pittman, who was in a similar position when we drafted him. He was an edge rusher. We converted him to linebacker. We've kept him around as a special teamer. So, but him having that good production on only less than 300 snaps in his career, having decent performance, especially on special teams. Like the guy in the past 2 years has had grades of 75.1, 74.3 on special teams. I know and that's the thing that will help players at the bottom of the roster. It will come down to special teams. So if you're choosing between like a Isaac D'Arcangelo or maybe someone like a Brady Breeze or someone, do you go with the youth and someone who was, I know Brady Breeze is a special teamer as well, but someone that's got the youth and has a bit more upside because you could eventually over the course of his UDFA contract, if you keep him, sort of mold him into something a bit more, maybe turning him into a sub-package run defender or something. I'd be leaning more towards D'Arcangelo, and that's not only just because he's such a good name, like POD name bracket candidate, like Isaac D'Arcangelo. What a cool name! Like it's definitely like jersey material.
Definitely jersey material, but I think I'm more with Ryan on this. Unfortunately, I don't know whether this. So with the drafting of a linebacker in round 1 that's going to limit Rodrigo's reps, Rodrigo's going to go to a backup role. Like, that seems inevitable now. If he's a backup, then why do you need a backup to the backup of a backup? Like, I don't see the route here. Now, maybe he's got a shot to be a core special teamer, perhaps. But we're going to come on to a guy that I think maybe has an even better shot at that in just a little moment. So I'm going to say that I think he's probably got a 30% shot at making it on the PS. But yeah. All right, let's move on to said other man. And this is going to be the wild card of the entire class in linebacker Trevor Nowaski. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. From Saginaw State. So another Detroit, not Detroit. I can't even speak now. Michigan native. Saginaw State, I believe, is about an hour north of Detroit or so. So he's in that sort of area. 182 tackles in his career, 4.5 sacks in 2022, 9.5 tackles for loss, and an interception as well. 6'2.5", 237 pounds. 9.86 RAS. He can, I said in the graphic, can align at Will or Sam. I think he can play all 3 linebacker spots. He's super aggressive with great closing speed and competitive at the catch point. But the guy played at Saginaw State for a reason. Like, he is extremely raw, but extremely athletic. And his best reps, he looks like an absolute mauler. Like, from the linebacker position, he's got twitchy feet, he's keeping on his toes, he's able to read and react to the quarterback in man or zone, he's physical at the line in press man. I'm quite interested in this. I say press man because when he lines up a linebacker, sometimes he actually just shifts out into nickel just a little bit and then ends up punching a wide receiver in the neck. Like, boom. Like, he's right in their faces. But he can be an edge right. Oh, Brent just said, lol, good try, Matthew. Saginaw. Thank you. Ouch. That sucks. Right. Have you guys managed to catch any of Trevor at all?
I've read his interview with Draft Diamonds, which was quite. He does sound like a Dan Campbell guy, but he's cerebral. So the first question he was asked was like, "What sets you apart from other linebackers?" The sort of like, "This your moment. Sell yourself to us." And he said it's his film study. The fact he just sits there and watches film on his own, and then he's able to dissect formations and that. So as you say, he can, if we need him to, be a backup Mike because he's got the sort of cerebralness, the brain to sort of dissect defenses and offenses, and understand what's going on. And pair that with like the nearly 10 rad score, I think he was in the 9.8s. This definitely is a guy that you can mold into something maybe. I haven't seen much of him personally, so obviously I'm just relying on what I'm reading from other people and like the Raz and that, which obviously isn't the best way to scout, for obvious reasons. But he definitely does bring something, and I can see him flashing in training camp with maybe like a big hit on Gibbs or something, and like when the pads come on, just making his mark on someone, making a play. And in preseason games, it'd be fun to watch. But that's about it. That's all I've seen, really.
I've seen very minimal, but he's probably more well-rounded or better in nearly every category than Isaac. And I feel like, I say, if we're going to compare the UDFA linebackers, I know which one's got a much better chance of making the practice squad. And I feel like it's probably going to be Trevor. Like, he's bigger, he's stronger, faster, a better finisher as well, and can flip inside and outside. He's happy to try pick up coverage or gets a running back out in the flat, try cover those kind of fields that Isaac probably wouldn't really want to. Like, say, his size and his limited athleticism. So Trevor does have more tools on his Batman belt, I suppose. He has more things that he can call upon if needs be. So for someone that's, I'd say, very small, I think second. I'm going to guess it's like D2.
Yes, D2. It is D2.
He is a small schooler, but that kind of makes him more intriguing. It's going to be actually a lot more fun to see how he does hang at the next level. So I think he's definitely going to be one of the names to keep an eye on off this list.
I have a feeling, a really good feeling, that this guy will be on the practice squad because of the raw skill set there. So there's some really good highlights of theirs on YouTube. They do very well, actually, Saginaw State, to try and put their guys front and center by releasing these videos. So if you haven't seen any of him, go and watch it. It's really good fun to see him on his best plays. Obviously, the problem is those aren't all the plays. So we'll see what we can do with that. Coach Shep, I think, could get the absolute best out of him. I got a sneaking suspicion that he'll be on the 53 before the end of the year. I don't think at the start of the year, but I really think that, Game 15, Game 16, injuries are hitting, people go down. He's got that sort of versatility to cover all three spots. I just think that with that athletic skill set, and I mean, the guy's aggressive as hell. Like, he really goes for it. And it's a sort of guy that can get 98 tackles and 4 interceptions is rare in this league. How many linebackers do you know that you can say, we've got 120 tackles this year, but there's no ball production? Or, well, the guy got 8 tackles, but his run defense is awful. Like, I really think that there's a combination here where if you take a swing, you can hit a homer with this guy. What about you? What do you reckon?
Sounds very much like, and I know it's going to annoy some people because obviously we're looking to upgrade on him, but Anzalone, like I remember last year, I can't remember the exact stat, but he's like one of the few linebackers in the NFL in this past couple of seasons that's got over like 100 tackles a season, 2 interceptions, all these. If you can turn into that sort of dependable guy, as you say, you can do it kind of all, be a master of everything, but jack of all trades, but master of none. A reliable sort of backup to Campbell, maybe, who obviously is going to be the centre point of a defense. Again, that's a steal for a UDFA, like cheap contracts. You can, as a backup linebacker, you won't be signing him to too much, probably like 1-2 million a year. Someone having dependable like that, and someone who's a local kid as well, we say is growing up in Michigan. Great story for the fans as well. Someone that they can probably really connect with.
All right, 2 guys left. First one is the cornerback, Starling Thomas V. Now, I think this is the first one of all of the guys that we've talked about where it was a surprise that he didn't get drafted. I think he was ranked as a sort of early day 3, mid day 3 guy, ended up falling out of it, unfortunately for him. He's a really fast player. He runs a 4.3 840, but he is 5'10", 190 with a RAS of 6.63, so short and light. 94 tackles in his career, 23 pass breakups, and 3 interceptions, coverage grade of 79.1. Lacks height and agility, which is not exactly the best trait for a cornerback, unfortunately. Good hips in transition, though, and good speed, so he really can carry people down the field. Ball skills are lacking when it comes to interceptions, and he's a scrappy player who needs discipline, otherwise he's going to be a flag machine. But I mean, how many cornerbacks can you say that about in college? So maybe that's not exactly too much to talk about. Played the final 7 games of the 2019 season with a torn ACL in his right knee, and he played through it. So any word of this guy not being tough as nails, I mean, this is a Dan Campbell knee-biting sort of guy. He's lived through the knee-biting, for God's sakes. Boys, Starling Thomas, has he got a shot here?
Probably. In a reworking secondary. Like I say, everything he does and everything he looks is unspectacular. He looks unremarkable. Everything like on tape, like I say, the stats, the size, the height. But he's kind of got something about him. Like I say, the UAB Blazers, like I say, a few years ago, they had to scrap their football team because things happened. They've only recently brought it back. They're not exactly a powerhouse or strong on either side of the ball. But yeah, there was talk of him getting drafted not long ago. And it was surprises that he fell out. So he's got a guy, he could stick around. Like I say, could he be the one that potentially sees the most playing time in the near future? It wouldn't surprise me. Being like a rotating secondary where we pick up a lot of injuries, his route to playing actually is more straightforward than some guys. So I feel like he's definitely got a shot. I feel like we're definitely going to keep him on the practice squad at worst. He just needs a bit of TLC, I reckon, like you say. And a lot of corners have got drafted this year, like say Clark Phillips, THT. Like people aren't that bothered about height anymore. He's bigger than most of them. So the physical attributes shouldn't hold him back. The toughness, and he will have to work on the scrappiness. He can't be that small and give away penalties, or he will get cooked. But yeah, this is the kind of guy that if someone like falls out of the draft that shouldn't do, and you race to the phone and get them, like you've got a plan for them. You can kind of see a role for them on this team somewhere, and it will definitely start on special teams with that elite speed.
Oh, Rice pretty much stole all the words out of my mouth. So yeah, for me, roots of the snaps initially, gonna just stick him on the outside on punt return, like kickoff coverage and all that. Just get him going to the returner, get them down. Because that's the one thing that really stands out in his PFF grades is the fact that this guy, aside from 3 games this past season, tackling grades above 70, all greens. This guy can tackle. And that's one of the things this team and Aaron Glenn really values is the ability for the outside corners to tackle. But that also brings me to what scares me. With the height, the team might try and force him inside, and that's where his lack of agility can really hurt him. If you stick him on the outside, he doesn't have to do as much like trying to keep up with like short like routes where he's having to jiggle around a bit. He can just sort of turn and run with a guy, which will really help him. But if we can work on the agility, this is a guy you can sort of, if we do come up against the Miami Dolphins in the next couple of seasons on the schedule, or if we face him in the Super Bowl, this is a guy you can sort of stick on a Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and he has the speed to keep up with him. This is a guy who is kind of in the mold of what you want the modern NFL cornerback to be, someone who can keep up with all this speed. So if we, and as you said, he's got a draftable grade, so there is something there. I can see him definitely making the practice squad. And then, yeah, if we get injuries, because obviously, especially with us, cornerbacks gets injured. If he's making plays, he's got taking snaps week 13, 14 and doing well, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like it's happened with Jerry 2 years ago, as the UDFA making a team out of nowhere and carve himself a sort of starting role. This guy might be tiny bit smaller than Jerry, a bit weaker, but damn, does he have the speed? And that's one of the things that really holds Jerry back is the fact he isn't the quickest. So, but having him and Jerry as sort of 2 UDFAs who made it and became starters at cornerbacks kind of is a good indictment for Aaron Glenn with all the troubles and some of the stuff that's been thrown at him in the past couple of years. The fact he's able to turn Jerry into what he is, and the fact he's got another chance now with a project with Thomas, he could really make a name for himself if he doesn't work out as at least someone who can be a very, very damn good secondary coach like he was in New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, when it said scrappy in the report and when I watched him play, I kind of thought, and I know that considering what you said about moving him aside and it not being his best trait, but I kind of thought AJ Parker about him, like a more athletic guy, but, clearly needs some TLC, as Ryan was saying. Lots of chatter about moving him inside because of that height, as you allude to, and I just don't know. Like, that agility doesn't help in that regard, but it might be the only way. I don't know. I mean, outside corner is less deep than inside, so maybe you're right, and maybe he does make it there. I do think that this is potentially the most likely guy to land on the practice squad, just because I don't know what cornerbacks are actually going to have in that regard. I don't think there's a lot of competition for that spot, so I think his chances of making it there are pretty damn high. 80s, 90s. What about you guys?
Yeah. I can see,
80 plus, yeah.
All right, last one to come up here is the other guy with the draftable grade out of all of these people, which is the safety Brandon Joseph from Notre Dame. Now, 3 years at Northwestern, 2 as a starter before moving to Notre Dame. Average athletic profile with a quick first step. He's 6'2", 202 with a RAS of 6.47, 125 tackles, 3 pass breakups, 10 interceptions, and a coverage grade last year of 77.1. He competes at the catch point very well, but his lack of speed really hampers his coverage ability as a safety. Jack of all trades seems to be a kind of theme with some of these guys. He excelled at Northwestern for a couple of years, was drafted in to replace Kyle Hamilton, guys, and it just didn't work.
Disaster. It was awful this year. Like I say, he was brought in to fill the shoes of Kyle Hamilton. Couldn't lace Kyle Hamilton's cleats. The move just did not work. He fell off a cliff, and that's why he got drafted. I don't think we're going to get the Northwestern Brandon Joseph. I'm just going to say it. I think those days are gone. He saw that his eyes light up with this move, but it wasn't right for him. Like I say, there was a starting spot, free safety for him, and he looked like a liability on a team that was supposed to be built on its defense, with Marcus Freeman bringing him in as a high-profile acquisition. It just didn't work. So a year ago, he got drafted probably day 2, day 3, but he fell off a cliff this year. And there's still something there. Like I say, he's still got ball skills. But like I say, he lacks agility, he lacks the size, he lacks the strength. Tackling as well can be an issue. I've watched a lot of tackling issues. Like I say, he is a good ball player. But yeah, I feel like with who we've definitely got on the team already, he's not a strong safety. I'm not putting him in the box. Don't trust him to tackle. So he's definitely not beating out Tracy or anyone to play free safety. But he will get taken off the practice squad because of what he's done at college. He will be hard to stash and keep because someone will try steal him. So it's kind of hard to say, I know what player he was, and I look at what player he is now, and I just I've just totally gone off the idea of him.
See, I think he has to just have a path to the roster as Kirby's backup. Because as you said, at Northwestern, he was used in that sort of Kirby role where he could patrol the back end and use those ball skills. And he wasn't asked to do much run defense. He wasn't asked to do much tackling, which was Kirby in college. This year, he's gone to Notre Dame and he's asked to do more of a Carl Hamilton thing, be more of a split safety, do a bit more run defense and tackle, which isn't his strong suit. So, of course, he's going to sort of fail. I know going to a biggest competition and that is a good move for him, but he should have considered a bit more the scheme fit of that. With us, he can go back to what he can get asked to do what he does well by playing that Kirby. I was a sort of single high safety who isn't asked to do as much run defense, isn't asked to tackle as much, is asked to sort of patrol the back end, use his IQ and his ball skills and create turnovers. So there's definitely that first round pedigree there. So I can just see us giving a chance, even if he does just turn out to be a Kirby Joseph backup. That's still useful because you can still use him on quite a few plays. You can even, if you want, just on when the Hail Marys and that, just whack him and Kirby back and then just have them pick after Hail Marys. He's definitely got more of I think he's actually got one of the clearest paths to snaps this year for me than pretty much any other the UDFAs that are not Mo and Sterling Thomas. Because for me, I can see that clear defined role as the Kirby Joseph 2.0 in our defense scheme. He might be at the back end and he might have to do some special teams things, which obviously he'll need to learn in training camp. You have to sort of sink or swim with that. But if you can learn that, for me, he's that free safety too, and I'm all for it. You have Tracy in the box, you have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Brian Branch, you can do the sort of in the box spot, like strong safety stuff. Then you have Kirby and Brandon Joseph as your patrolling free safeties on the back end. I'm happy with that.
I guess it really comes down to this. So the safeties on the roster right now, Tracy Walker, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, depends how you put him in a box, Will Harris, Kirby Joseph, Brady Breeze, and Ifeatu Melifonwu. Now, the only one of that lot, and our new draft pick as well, of course, the only one of that lot that's going to be on the practice squad or not is Brady Breeze. Everyone else is either hanging or being claimed elsewhere. Like, no one else can make the practice squad. So the question on whether this guy makes the practice squad is, does he beat out Brady Breeze? That's the question he has to answer. Breeze has familiarity with his coaching staff already. They clearly believe enough in him to bring him back on a futures deal. He made the roster at some point. I mean, we were very light on DBs at the time, but you know, he's been a man of the 53 at some point. So they like Brady Breeze. Are they going to like Brandon Joseph? I'm so torn with this as to whether I think it's going to happen or not. Ryan?
He has to be out Melifonwu, not Brady Breeze. I don't think if he's even going to make the team. So I actually think there's a great chance of it at practice squad. I reckon you're going to have to designate him as one of those you protect. Because I reckon like, if we try put on the practice squad, someone's going to try and claim him. But yeah, I can see him making a practice squad because guys like Ife, he can't just be a no position tweener anymore. Like it's time to shit or get off the pot for Ife. He's either a cornerback or a safety. He needs to get down and sit and decide what they're going to do with him. Because right up until now, there's been no plan with the kid whatsoever. We're wasting his time. Set him free. We are wasting Melifonwu's time, unfortunately. So yeah, I think Brandon, that when you list the safety room like that, it sounds bad. The depth sounds terrible. So yeah, he will definitely get a chance on this team.
Especially when you consider the fact you list those safeties. Out of those, who do you trust in that free safety role other than Kirby and Tracy? Brady Breeze is a box safety. Iffy is more of a box safety kind of guy.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm saying.
Like and Branch too. So
yeah,
you're right, 100%. So maybe this guy just has a really clear shot despite some obvious weaknesses.
Yeah.
All right, that's the end of the UDFA class. People in the live chat, if you have some questions, get them in now. We haven't been going too long, so I'm going to get to the two questions we've already had, and I'll address the first one very quickly. Mike the Marine with both questions. The first one, undrafted free agents that do make the team, do they become ERFAs in the following year? So, to make this very clear for everyone listening who don't understand how the contracts work for UDFAs. UDFAs are rookies, and all rookies are subject to the rookie wage scale. And what that means is if you are drafted, you have your 4-year contracts, you are beholden to the team for that 4-year contract. If you're undrafted, you are still beholden to your team. It's only 3 years, but you have your first year contract that you sign, and then you become an exclusive rights free agent, ERFA, for the following 2 seasons. And that is why for James Houston, we have 2 more years of control on him before he becomes a restricted free agent. So years 2 and 3, ERFA, that basically gives the team control of your contract. If you don't sign the ERFA tender, you cannot play for anyone else, and that gives you the minimum salary possible, which I think is something in the region of $700,000. So you must play under the tender, or you don't play football, in the NFL at least. So we have 3 years of control. Then restricted free agent is in the 4th year. So the team still retains control, but it's tempered. You can give a tender right of first refusal, second round or first round tender. And there's varying contract values on each of those. So right of first refusal is just the ability to match a contract offer in year 4. Otherwise, second or first round tender, a team gives up a second or first round pick to match the tender at, I think it's $3 and $6 million or something like that for those second and first round tenders. It's something in that realm. So that's how contracts work for UDFAs. The deal you sign, 2 years of ERFA, that makes 3 total. Restricted free agent is 4. That's the same 4 years that a rookie contract has if you're drafted. So it's very similar as it goes through, just slight nuances to it.
Yeah, because there's a slight, yeah. So obviously the big thing is to sort of add a tiny bit more detail into it. For it's if at the end of the contract the player has less than two or fewer accrued seasons. So if they've been on the roster for 6 or more games during that season, it counts as an accrued season. So that means either they're on the active roster, they're part of injured reserve, or on the PUP, it's accrued season. If they're on just a practice squad, NFI, commissioners exempt, anything doesn't count. It's 2 or fewer of them, ERFA. If it's 3, then it's a restricted free agent. And then if they have 4 or more, then they're just an unrestricted free agent. There's no tenders. It's normal free agency. So it's really to do with that sort of 6 or more regular season games. That's the key thing to look forward to with the UDFAs.
Next one from Mike Marine is, how do you think the new defensive line coach will do with his room? Pros and cons on him. Ryan, I'm going to come to you straight away. Penn State guy, right?
Yeah, John Scott Jr. should do bloody well because he's just had some monstrous defensive lines at Penn State. This guy had PJ Mustafa, Yeeta Gross-Matos, and Micah Parsons just in the last few years. Sent them all to the draft. So, yeah, and they are known, the Nittany Lions, for their run defense. For as long as I can remember the last few years, their run defense is brilliant. And they have got a stout front 7. So, yeah, he is getting a plethora of weapons. He's young. He's got talent. Like you say, he's got an eye for talent. He was a good recruiter as well. So, hopefully, he can just pick up where he left off. But, yeah, I expect our run game to improve. Pass rush, I'm not so sure about. That might not be his level of expertise. But, yeah, stout against the run and improving the middle is where I hope he brings this team.
Yeah, so to go and he has had NFL experience before. He was with the Jets 2015, 2016, but he has pumped out NFL talent. So in 2017, when he was with Arkansas, they had Armon Watts, who's now with the Chiefs as a D lineman. In 2019, he was with South Carolina. Javon Kinlaw, who infamously got drafted by the 49ers after they traded away DeForest Buckner to the Colts. Obviously hasn't worked out, but he was productive in college. Then obviously he's been at Penn State, who have pumped out these D linemen as well. So this is someone who, while the previous incumbent was there for more bringing in the veterans, he's worked with Charles Harrison, that obviously made him things. We're now moving to more of we're drafting guys, and this is someone who can give like a 3rd round D lineman like we have this year and trust him to be able to connect with that guy and get the best out of him. That's what really I think the focus is here, is sort of having more of that sort of youth movement and bringing in the draft picks and the UDFAs and trusting him to turn them over. Because the way that the roster's going now, that's how we're going to have to be. We can't keep affording to splash out on veterans. So we need to have the mental stuff there. So that's, I think, why he's been brought in. And I really like the move and I think he can do it. But obviously, Javon Kinlaw is perhaps the con. Like, good at pass rush, but hasn't really translated. So it's not like he's 100, but he's going to hit 100% of the time. He will have misses, but it's just having trust in him to sort of keep giving him guys to work with.
And final question from Giovanni Lyons II. Do y'all believe that Detroit wanted Witherspoon at 6, missed, and then missed on Bijan at 12 as well?
No. I think we missed with Witherspoon at 6. But I think the team had Gibbs higher rated than Bijan.
Yeah, that's what worried me too. I do believe that that they would have taken Gibbs before Bijan. That scared the life out of me. But yeah, the ultimate kicker was they wanted Witherspoon. He went, so they bailed.
Yeah, we talked about that on the show just a few days ago, actually. I believe the same as you guys. The fact that they put the deal together to move down from 6 to 12 inside the 10 minutes is crazy to me. That they got reasonable value. I won't say they knocked it out of the park because I don't think they did, but achieving a trade down from 6 is no mean feat. We've been we are fans of a team that struggled to trade out of 3 a few times. You know, like trading down with months in advance to prepare is difficult. When you're intending to pick at 6 and then your pick goes early, that's got to be really hard. I mean, part of me would kind of hope that they would have a trade in place for this example already, but clearly things changed. Arizona traded out at 3, and you can't account for them being the ones who want to trade up, but there we go. Right, that's going to do it for our show. We're going to maybe stick around just to chat for 5 minutes after we come off the air, so if you're on YouTube and Twitch, stick around with us for just a moment. But on the audio show, our next episode, all being well, next Monday, 15th of May, is going to be the schedule release reaction. We're going to have a look at the first 8 opponents, have a look at how they did in the draft, what their team looks like now, how difficult it might be, where we're at inside 8 games. College Podcast 2 returns soon, looking at the different conferences in the Power and Group of 5. You can find us on YouTube at Royal Lions UK, as well as Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And the group on Facebook for Worldwide Fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide. Articles on ROTLUK.com. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us 5 stars on your podcast provider. Our thanks to Jeff Hurley, especially for that super chat earlier on today of $50. That really makes a massive difference to the show. You have no idea, so thank you for that. And to everyone else for subscribing to us. Even just bumping up the rankings by hitting the like and whatever, how much it helps the small guys out. So thank you for that. We'll see you on Monday to react to the schedule. Who knows? The Lions could be in Germany, boys. We could be acting that next week, which would be interesting. But for now, let's go Lions, One Pride.
One Pride.
Recording stopped.
All right. That was a good show and short for once. But I guess... there's only so many guys. I know so much we know about them. The 2 guys I really am interested about are Katon Thompson, Ryan Swoboda, and Trevor Nowaski, just because of the athletic stuff. But
yeah,
and I guess I'm Martinez as well, because we've never had anyone like that before. But then hookers with Martinez. The only thing I didn't say about Martinez, because of hooker, doesn't he seem a bit redundant?
Tiny bit. It's a bit. He's a bit more athletic, though. I think.
Really,
in my opinion. He's a bit. Well, fine. It's Hooker is more of like the sort of powerful runner, while Martinez is a bit more
speed,
fast. Yeah, speed kind of thing. So it's just a different thing. Like it's like feel. I think feel is like going up against Hurts versus Lamar. Hurts is more of a power runner's receiver, that infamous goal line push kind of thing, while Lamar is more of the speedy, flash in the pan kind of runner. It's just given us the ability to practice against both kinds. So let's say, obviously dream scenario, we're in the Super Bowl against the Ravens and Lamar. There's the perfect person to practice against. Someone who has the exact same, not exact same, but same kind of running style, speed for us to work out against.
Yeah, right. I think, folks, we're going to go at this point. Anything you want to bring up, Ryan? Anything you want to get off your chest at this point? We haven't had a Ryan's rants for a while.
No, but I can sort of think of something and upset myself enough.
All right, there's one topic I can think of, but I won't bring it up.
Oh, Mike the Marines just said, how many UDFAs make it overall? Mike, I'm going to take your question to be practice squad and 53, just because I think 53 is a shot to nothing. But how many guys make it to the 69?
How many did we sign?
14?
Yeah.
14. A quarterback, a running back, 2 wide receivers, 3 offensive linemen, 3 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, a cornerback, and a safety.
5 or 6?
Yeah, I'd say 7 max.
Okay, I think Martinez, Ibrahim, Thompson, Swoboda, Smith, Morton, Nowaski, Thompson, Joseph. That is 8 for me. But we shall see. I hope Brad Cecil makes it, but I just have my doubts.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm pulling for the most. Just want to say, even though Anne isn't here, but to say it to Ryan as well, good luck, Ryan, for Bradford for the playoffs. Hope you guys get there, because it's going to be a big deal. I know you weren't there today, but are you going to go to the playoff game?
Yeah, I can get a ticket. I didn't renew my season ticket this year for the first time 7 years, so I'm never going to get the Carlisle away, but remains to be seen if I'll get the home tie this Sunday. But we're not winning the playoffs, so don't worry. not getting my hopes up.
Oh,
Fair. For Chesterfield, for Ant, they're through to the final after an edgy game yesterday where they were down at halftime and brought it back. So Chesterfield in the final on Saturday. They're in the same league as Wrexham. They were playing the team that Wrexham played to basically secure the top spot, where the Notts County missed a penalty in the final minute to lose that game, which is just awful. So they're playing Notts County, who are the second best team in terms of points scored in English League history. So Chesterfield should be considered, I think, the underdogs at Wembley. However, Ant's really bullish about this game. So
it is, and that's why you could see me on Twitter sort of winding up, because obviously I have to back the hometown team. I am living in Nottingham, so obviously I have to support Notts County in a way. So I'm looking I don't want to say I'm looking forward to winding him up after it, because I don't want him to kill me. But at the same time, if Notts County do win, I will put one snarky comment and then run and hide for the nearest nuclear bunker and hope I don't get myself torn in half.
You will.
That's trying to lose. It will be hilarious.
It will be really funny.
I will laugh and laugh. I will mock them all day long on Twitter. I will come for them.
I just hope for Ant's sake they make it. I want a happy Anthony Fitzpatrick back on the show when he comes back after his hiatus. So hope you guys can give your well wishes to our man and to Ryan as well for their playoff hopes for the football. It's the off season for the American football, so got to turn our attention elsewhere. And thanks you guys for sticking with us all this time. Really appreciate you, and we'll see you next week. Bye all.
Bye.